In the early hours of March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 departed Kuala Lumpur for Beijing with 239 people on board. It was a routine overnight long-haul segment on a Boeing 777-200ER, one of the most trusted aircraft types in commercial aviation. There was no storm front forcing route changes, no immediate mayday, and no public warning signs that this flight would become unlike any other. Yet less than an hour after takeoff, MH370 stopped appearing on civilian tracking systems and slipped into silence. That single moment transformed a normal passenger service into a global mystery. The reason this case still matters is not only the scale of loss, but the way it exposed a hard truth. In some parts of the world, especially over open ocean, modern aviation can still lose visibility faster than most people imagine. The last routine voice contact with air traffic control occurred around 38 minutes into the flight. Soon after, MH370 disappeared from secondary surveillance radar, the system that depends on the aircraft transponder to transmit identity and altitude. Losing that feed does not automatically mean a crash. It can also mean the transponder stopped transmitting. What made the timeline more complex was military primary radar, which can track aircraft returns without transponder cooperation. According to reported data, an aircraft consistent with MH370 appeared to turn back, cross the Malay Peninsula, and continue westward before fading from radar range northwest of Penang. This suggested sustained flight after civilian contact was lost. Investigators now faced a layered event, not a single sudden break. Communications ended, course changed, and the aircraft kept moving in controlled flight for some time. Early search planning focused near the original route over the South China Sea, because that was where contact had last been expected in normal operations. But as days passed, investigators began relying on an unusual data source: automated satellite handshakes between the aircraft and an Inmarsat satellite network. These were not full position broadcasts, and they did not provide a neat GPS breadcrumb trail. Instead, analysts interpreted timing and frequency characteristics to estimate possible distance bands at each handshake moment. The resulting geometry produced broad arcs across the globe. One arc pointed north, another south. As analysis progressed, the southern corridor over the Indian Ocean became more likely. That shift radically expanded the challenge. The search area moved from relatively trafficked regional skies to one of the most remote maritime zones on Earth, where depth, weather, and distance dramatically reduce recovery odds. From there, the investigation entered a world of probabilities. If the aircraft continued south and eventually ran out of fuel, it could have ended anywhere along a vast corridor depending on speed, altitude profiles, winds, and autopilot behavior. Every model had assumptions, and small assumption changes could move likely impact zones by large distances. This is why experts often sounded cautious even when headline reports sounded confident. In technical investigations, confidence intervals matter more than dramatic certainty. MH370 became a case where advanced analytics could narrow scenarios, but not close them. Without the aircraft itself, investigators could not verify exactly what happened in the cockpit, what system states existed in final minutes, or whether any interventions occurred near fuel exhaustion. The absence of hard endpoint evidence turned each theory into a structured argument, not a proven chain of events. Public attention quickly centered on possible causes: catastrophic failure, onboard fire, hijacking, deliberate diversion, crew incapacitation, or combinations of these. Some scenarios could explain one part of the timeline but failed to explain another. For example, a sudden in-flight breakup struggles to fit signs of continued trackable movement after transponder loss. A deliberate diversion can align with route changes, but proving who acted and why requires direct evidence that never fully emerged. Media coverage amplified speculative angles, often faster than official verification could keep up. That information gap affected families and public trust. In a case this visible, uncertainty becomes emotional as well as technical. Investigators had to remain methodical while facing intense global pressure for instant conclusions. and the mismatch between investigative pace and public expectation became one of the defining features of the MH370 story. One frequently discussed hypothesis was hypoxia, meaning loss of oxygen leading to incapacitation. In aviation, depressurization events can disable occupants if oxygen management fails or responses are delayed. In such scenarios, an aircraft may continue on autopilot with little or no active cockpit control until fuel is exhausted. This framework can account for prolonged silent flight and lack of distress communication. But applying it to MH370 remains speculative because the full sequence of events is unknown. Investigators considered it plausible in light of available evidence, yet no universal consensus declared it the definitive cause. That distinction is crucial. Plausible does not mean proven. MH370 demonstrates how accident analysis often separates what is technically possible, what is consistent with partial data, and what can be conclusively demonstrated. In this case, the final category remained out of reach. The search itself became historic in scale and cost. Initial operations covered areas tied to early assumptions, then shifted southwest as satellite analysis redirected priorities. Over time, teams scanned roughly 120,000 square kilometers of seabed in the southern Indian Ocean using sonar and specialized survey vessels. This was not simple grid driving. Crews had to account for rugged underwater terrain, sensor limitations, weather disruptions, and navigation precision over extreme distances. The operational complexity was immense, and each pass represented significant logistical and financial commitment. Yet despite years of effort, the main wreckage field was not found. In 2017, coordinated governmental searches were suspended. In 2018, private contractor Ocean Infinity launched another mission under a performance-linked model, essentially accepting payment only for success. That effort also ended without locating the aircraft, reinforcing how unforgiving deep ocean uncertainty can be. Then came debris discoveries along western Indian Ocean coastlines and islands, especially in 2015 and 2016. Several pieces were confirmed as originating from MH370, including components associated with Boeing 777 structure. These finds mattered because they strengthened the southern Indian Ocean end location narrative. But they did not deliver a full solution. Drift analysis can estimate where floating debris might have come from, yet ocean currents, storm cycles, and time delays create wide uncertainty bands over months or years. Debris can validate a basin without pinpointing an impact site. In practical terms, the evidence answered part of the question, likely region, while leaving the core sequence unresolved: what exactly happened in the cockpit and systems chain leading to final descent. This partial closure is one reason MH370 remains so powerful in public memory: definitive fragments, but no definitive ending. Malaysia's 2018 final report was formally inconclusive, and that outcome often gets misunderstood. Inconclusive does not mean careless. It means investigators documented what could be established and refused to overstate what could not. The report highlighted communication attempts by air traffic control after contact loss and reviewed available technical pathways, but it did not assign a single confirmed cause. That restraint reflects aviation investigation standards. Credibility depends on evidence, not narrative pressure. For families, however, inconclusive findings can feel like an unfinished sentence. They provide institutional acknowledgement without full emotional resolution. MH370, therefore, lives in two realities at once: a rigorously studied technical case and a continuing human wound. Both are true, and both shaped the long aftermath for governments, airlines, investigators, and the people waiting for certainty that never fully arrived. Even without a final causal verdict, MH370 drove major safety reforms. Regulators and industry bodies strengthened expectations for aircraft position reporting over oceanic routes, reducing the chance that a jet could go untracked for long periods. Underwater locator beacon endurance requirements were increased so post-crash acoustic signals can persist longer. Flight recorder policies also evolved, with extended recording durations improving the likelihood that critical pre-event context survives. These changes reflect aviation's prevention logic. When a rare event exposes systemic blind spots, close those gaps before the next crisis. No reform can eliminate all uncertainty, but MH370 forced aviation to confront surveillance limitations that had been tolerated in legacy frameworks. Its legacy is not only mystery, but modernization, transforming pain and ambiguity into concrete design and regulatory upgrades intended to make future disappearances less likely and investigations more recoverable. The deeper lesson of MH370 is about the boundary between technology and certainty. We assume global systems are seamless, that every aircraft is continuously visible, and that digital traces guarantee rapid answers. MH370 showed the opposite can still happen when communication layers fail and geography works against recovery. It also showed how quickly information vacuums attract overconfident theories. In high-stakes investigations, disciplined uncertainty is not weakness, it is honesty. We now know far more than in the first chaotic weeks, likely long-duration flight after contact loss, likely southern Indian Ocean endpoint, and verified debris ties. Yet a complete, evidence-locked narrative from first anomaly to final moments remains missing. That unresolved gap is why MH370 still commands attention. It is not just a vanished flight. It is a case that continues to test how modern institutions investigate, communicate, and learn when definitive proof remains beyond reach. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.